In a village where the earth had long since lost its color, there lived an old farmer named Elias. His back was bent from decades of work, his hands rough from holding plows, and his skin bronzed by the relentless sun. The villagers often spoke of the days when his fields had been the pride of the land, rows of golden wheat swaying like waves in the wind, vegetables bursting with color, and fruit trees heavy with sweetness. But that was years ago. The rains had grown fickle, the soil had hardened into cracked clay, and each season's harvest had shrunk until nothing was left. Elias lived alone now. His children had moved away to the city, searching for work, and his wife had passed on years before. Still, he stayed, tending to his barren land as though it were a sick friend he refused to abandon. Every morning he rose before the sun, carried his tools to the field, and stared at the lifeless earth, as if waiting for it to breathe again. One gray morning, as Elias searched through the corners of his storage shed, his fingers brushed against a small, rough cloth pouch. Inside, nestled at the bottom, was a single seed. He held it up to the light, astonished. He couldn't even remember when he had saved it. Perhaps it was left from a season long gone, a remnant of the years when his fields had still known life. The seed was small, unremarkable to the eye, but to Elias it felt like a final gift. He stepped outside, the wind tugging at his worn coat, and stared at his cracked land. His neighbors saw him and chuckled. "What's that in your hand, old man?" one asked. "A seed," Elias replied simply. The men laughed. "The ground won't take it. Haven't you learned? This land is dead." But Elias only smiled faintly. As long as there's a seed, there's a chance. That afternoon, he dug a small hole in the driest corner of his field. The soil was stubborn, breaking into sharp clumps under his shovel. His breath came heavy, sweat streaked his brow, but still he worked until the hole was ready. He placed the seed in the earth as gently as if he were laying a child to rest. Then he covered it, pressed the soil down with both hands, and whispered, "Grow, even if I do not live to see you." Days passed. Elias returned each morning to the spot, carrying a clay jug filled with what little water he could spare. He poured it carefully onto the soil, watching it disappear into the cracks. Some mornings he spoke to the earth as if it could hear him, telling it stories of the old days when the fields had danced with life. The villagers mocked him openly. "You waste your water," they said. "Nothing will come of it." Elias paid them no mind. His hope was not in their approval, but in the tiny seed beneath the ground. Weeks slipped by, and then one morning, as dawn painted the horizon with streaks of gold, Elias saw it. A small, fragile green sprout pushing its way through the hardened soil. His heart skipped. He knelt down, touching the tender leaf with calloused fingers. "Welcome," he whispered. The sprout grew. Slowly, steadily, against all odds, it reached for the sky. Each day, Elias watered it, protected it from grazing animals, shielded it from careless feet. The neighbors stopped mocking. Instead, they began to watch with quiet wonder as the plant rose taller and stronger. By the time spring gave way to summer, the sprout had become a sturdy young tree. Its leaves shone with a deep green unlike anything the villagers had seen in years. Soon, small blossoms appeared, pale and delicate, carrying a fragrance that drifted through the dry air like a forgotten song. When the fruit came, it was plentiful. Round and golden, they hung heavy from the branches, glowing in the sunlight. The villagers gathered in awe as Elias picked the first one. He cut it open, and the scent of sweetness filled the air. He shared the fruit with them, one piece after another, until every mouth in the crowd tasted its gift. For the first time in years, the village felt alive. Children laughed with juice running down their chins, and weary mothers smiled as they tasted the richness they thought had been lost forever. The villagers came to Elias then, their voices softer than before. "We were wrong to laugh," one admitted. "Your seed has given us hope." Elias looked at the tree, its branches swaying gently in the summer breeze. "It wasn't just the seed," he said. "It was the chance it carried. All it takes is planting. Even when you believe the ground is too broken, life finds a way when you give it a chance." From then on, the villagers began to plant again. They searched for seeds in their storage, shared with one another, and worked the soil together. The fields, once barren, began to stir with life again. First with small shoots, then with rows of crops stretching across the land. And at the center of it all stood the great tree that had grown from Elias's last seed, its fruit feeding not only him, but the entire village. Though Elias's body grew weaker with the passing years, his heart remained strong. Each time he looked at that tree, he saw more than branches and leaves. He saw the proof that hope, even when sown in the hardest ground, could bloom into something greater than anyone believed possible.